voices rise. Richie and John, we're here to surprise. Freedom and pride, we're living out loud, celebrating our community with a vibrant crowd. Freedom and equality, let it be clear. Being who you are, a fun, frisky, and out loud queer. From mutual broadcasting, we're breaking free. Living our truth, just you listen and see.
From the Mutual Broadcasting Systems United America Network, this is the voice of LGBTQ+ news and life-focused content. The Richie and John podcast. No bullshit, just reality for the community and allies around the globe. Here are your hosts, infinitely wiser, smarter and kinder than everyone in the Trump administration, combined. Definitely uncensored, even if they are not uncut. Richie Roy and John McMullen. Give 'em hell, boys.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Richie and John. We are back from our hiatus. We had a Newsday Tuesday for you, and we are back with a substantial Saturday. And
last weekend, we were talking on Tuesday about the fact that there was a major event that happened in the nation's capital, and we tonight are fortunately having with us one of our regular correspondents who was present in Washington, D.C. for World Pride this past week.
that is true. We have our wonderful friend James Appadale is here, who is at World Pride and can give us the download from it. I know I was worried about how it would go, given the current administration and everything that's going on right now. And I think, we saw a lot of sponsors pulling out of prides generally. So there was just this sense that maybe World Pride would be kind of a fiasco. But James, how was World Pride?
Well, thank you for having me. And World Pride was wonderful. There was no really major hitches. It was pretty good, actually. The parade went well. It was really long, though. Really, really, really long. 2-mile parade in the heat, marching, carrying a flag, leading the parade is a lot.
Was it an American flag? And if so, was it upside down?
No, we did carry the American flag. I did not carry that one. I assisted initially with just carrying the banner, but one of the flag bearers that was going when we were going down the parade route got overheated, so I grabbed the flag and stepped in and carried the flag the rest of the way for the parade.
Good job.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were still there. I mean, not as many as they had anticipated. A lot of people were afraid to come to the United States. We are actually now on some countries' watch lists for good reason. So tell us first of all, about the crowd size and over the course of the weekend, the kinds of things that were going on, because it was a lot more than just a pride parade.
There was a lot of different events that were going on. And I obviously did not get to see very many of the events just because I was involved in the parade, but I did go through where the festival was happening, and there was a lot of people there. I don't know exactly what the number count was, but I know there was a substantial amount of people that came in from all over the world and the United States to gather. And some of it was for some of the events that there was protests that were scheduled throughout the Pride month that they had, because they scheduled World Pride for a very large venue that went from May into June. So it was a lot more than just the Pride Parade and the planned events of the singers that were there on stage. It was a lot. And it was free. So there was a lot of free events that were available. I
had other friends who attended the event from here in the Palm Springs area and who sent back throughout the weekend videos of a lot of the performances that were going on stage there. It was a really substantial entertainment event as well. It looked to me like a little mini Coachella.
Absolutely. There was a lot of, and it was all free. It was a lot of free entertainment. It was just, you had to go through security to go into the event, which was pretty good. And there was nobody really harassing anybody. It was the Capitol Police were there at the beginning of the parade, and they were all friendly and kind, and there was no events as far as I saw.
What about the other programming that they had set up to go along with it? Did that spur a lot of, not necessarily protests, but a lot of people who came and made their concerns known through their activism interests? because of this event and because of the administration and all of the things that have happened that have seemingly been very anti-LGBTQ?
Absolutely. So there was, as you know, some of the areas were closed off that were originally would normally be open for Pride, and there was no real reason for it other than the administration deemed that there may be a threat, and there was no threats. There was nothing. It was a big nothing burger as far as that goes. A pretty peaceful event. We did have there was some scheduled protests that were done, and those were peaceful. There was no anything to be concerned about as far as that goes. But yeah, there was definitely some concern with DuPont Circle being closed.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that there was also a stabbing and a shooting, but
and that had happened, I think, before the event actually started, though.
Yeah.
Now, you're involved as the vice president nationally of an organization called American Veterans for Equal Rights. As part of AVER, was there a lot of presence of people who have served in uniform for the United States there taking part in this event?
Absolutely. So there was there was 4 organizations that came. There was the American Veterans for Equal Rights, who led the parade with the color guard. And immediately behind us was the Fife and Drum Corps, who was keeping beat in time. And then immediately behind them was Modern Military Association of America and their contingent. And then and behind them was Sparta, which is the transgender organization. So we had a really big turnout of veterans. And of course, really concerning with all of the active duty military that were there that are in the process of being booted out of the military or forced to resign or retire because of the policies that are happening right now. So they're being discharged, or if they are eligible for retirement, they're retiring. And some of these people have, we've invested a lot of money in, and some of them wanted to stay on active duty, but they're being forced out to retire. So it was good to catch up with a lot of them, see them in person, and I'm planning on trying to meet with some of them and do some interviews in the upcoming weeks.
Nice. So overall, give it a grade.
I would say it was, other than the heat, I would say it was probably a good B+.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe an A-, but everything, it was peaceful. Everything was fine. The entertainment was good from what I saw. The lineup was good as far as what I looked at on the schedule, and the people in the company were good that I got to hang around with.
So the event overall, the event organizers did a really good job this year.
Yes, I think so. Everything kicked off pretty well on time. There was no major delays like when I went to New York's World Pride. There was a lot of major delays. That parade lasted it went into the nighttime. It was really long. Whereas
it's like going to Gay Pride in San Francisco. It starts at 9:00 in the morning, and you're lucky if you're out of there by 5 or 6 in the evening at the parade alone.
Right. Yeah. But for the parade, it was pretty good. And other than being really super hot and keeping everybody hydrated, and then of course, I was marching with a bunch of older veterans, so that's why we were having some of them were having a little hard time. We walked to the beginning of the parade, which was 2 miles there, and then we marched another 2 miles going back. So there's a lot of walking.
I want to make sure you have good shoes for events like that then.
And we were all wearing boots.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all wearing army boots and camouflage fatigue pants and a shirt and a hat, a ball cap. So yeah, we were all quite.
Richie, what would you have been wearing if you had gone?
Well, I would have been wearing.
No, I asked Richie this because the other day I heard him talking online in a forum. They were talking about shoes, and he was talking about this beloved pair of shoes that he's had resold several times because right as he was going into a period of being between jobs, he ended up spending north of $500 on this pair of shoes. Would you have worn those in the parade?
No, I do love that pair of shoes. It's a nice pair of shoes. But these days, it's so funny. I have sort of like a ridiculous number of pairs of shoes, but I really almost always wear, if I can get away with it, Birkenstocks. I'm a Birkenstock boy. They're comfy as hell. You can wear them as long as you want. I'd probably wear Birkenstocks to Pride. I mean, I know I would the lesbians would love it. They'd be all about it. The gays might give me a second look, but
I was going to ask you, when did you become a lesbian? Yeah.
That doesn't really surprise me. I mean, we have a Birkenstock shop right here, right in the heart of Palm Springs, right at the plaza in downtown. And, I think that they knew what market they were in when they decided to open that store.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they probably have like a velvet rope out in front of there for a dinosaur weekend, But I kind of want to, so, it sounds like World Pride was a success, which I'm happy about. I kind of want to pivot, given that we have our sort of military and veteran correspondent with us, a couple things that have come up recently. One is our current president, I don't like to say his name, so I'll just say our current president, gave a speech recently at Fort Bragg. And I don't know if you saw the video of it, but, I believe that traditionally the armed forces are supposed to not be politicized and are not supposed to be used in that way. But if you watch the videos of it, there are a bunch of folks in berets in the background as a background for the current president saying all kinds of bellicose, stupid, incoherent word salad things, and them cheering and booing when he wanted to boo, and basically acting like, a studio audience for an autocrat. I'm interested to know, I mean, first of all, did you watch this, and what are your thoughts as someone who, believes in, sort of the military as being, sort of above the fray?
I did watch it, and I was appalled, because that's not the way you're supposed to act in the military. You're supposed to maintain your decorum. Yes, it's okay to applaud when you're supposed to applaud, those types of things, but the way that they were acting was definitely inappropriate. And I know that there was a couple of generals that also came on record who also stated that that was inappropriate and that would never would have happened under their watch. I know that those people that were selected, they were hand selected to come to be there, so that they knew that they had, people that were favorable for Trump in the background, and that they supported him. So that was designed to be that way.
I'm glad you brought that point up, James, because I actually read a very detailed story about this in military.com, and they talked about how various troops at Fort Bragg were solicited and were actually also weeded out who might have conflict, and what they were to do with their commands in terms of communicating if they had an issue with anything that the president might say. And it was chilling to see the lengths that they go to for this. But then I thought about it later, and I was like, why should I be? Because it's just like any time he had a political rally for his campaign and would go to various cities, and they would have ads in places like Craigslist looking for basically actors, people to fill seats to do that. And it was interesting because this week, Richie, they did exactly the same thing for today's event in Washington, the military parade in honor of the 250th anniversary of the Army, and of course, the exalted leader's birthday.
Right. And I was going to get to that event, but I want to circle back to the Fort Bragg thing, because one of the things that I think is really dangerous here, James, I think you would know far better than I, but one of the reasons to not politicize the military is that you want cohesion in the military. You want everyone to be on the same page, because you're all coming from different parts of the country, different walks of life, different races, all kinds of things, and you're working towards a singular goal. But when you inject this politicized thing where, first of all, people are chosen or not chosen based on their political beliefs to go to this event, and then to see your fellow military members cheering or, braying or whatever, and then you go back to the barracks, it's like that cohesion is broken. You know where people stand, and if you're a person of color, from Atlanta, and you are enlisted and you saw your buddy, in your same group going up there and cheering for, the xenophobic, racist garbage coming out of the current commander-in-chief's mouth, the cohesion's not there. You don't feel like that person has your back.
Absolutely. So that's the point of having military not being aligned with any political party, is so that we have that unit cohesion. And then on top of that, while we do obey lawful orders from the President of the United States, if they were to come down, we're not loyal to any one party or one person in the party. So therefore, if an unlawful order came down, we should not be obeying that order also, because our loyalty is to the Constitution of the United States and protecting that and protecting our freedom here in the United States. That's our loyalty, not to one person, one political party, one president, or one king, as they may think that they are. So that's the whole point of having that military cohesion, having making sure that we're doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. And it would have been frowned upon just as much as if there would have been a group of Democrats in uniform booing. That would have been just as bad, in my opinion. If they're in uniform, they're supposed to stay apolitical. Yes, it's an honor to be there with the president, depending on where you stand. But to be that extreme, I think it went way overboard, and it could. I don't know what the regulations. I'd have to look and see if there violates any regulations or not. But I think it would definitely destroy any morale of your unit and your cohesion that you may have.
Yeah, and it also just strikes me that, when you look at the kind of current leadership, Republicans are famously super pro-military, even when the things they do, like cutting the VA, and really kind of, in this current iteration, treating the military like garbage. But, they say they love the military, but they have know-nothings in charge of the military by choice, like a Pete Hegseth. You are undermining unit cohesion through these kind of politicized stunts. At what point, where are the Republicans in Congress or even just kind of in leadership in the military, anywhere, to say, we really need a strong military, and what this current guy is doing is making our military weaker?
Absolutely. We do need our senators and congressmen to step up and say, hey, enough is enough. Our military is to protect our Constitution and not a particular party. And so that's part of it. And then for me, the Republicans always touted that they support the military, but when it comes right down to it, when I was in service, in wearing uniform, I didn't get my pay raises for the most part when a Republican was in the office. They touted that, but that never came.
Yeah, I want to point out, because Richie, you said that Republicans come off as being pro-military, and I agree with you that they try to convey that message that they are pro-military, but I think that there is a very distinct difference. I think while the Republicans are generally speaking pro-military, quote unquote, that the Democrats are very pro-veteran and pro-soldier or troop, because we care about how we take care of those people who are there to defend our shores and to serve our country, whether that is making sure that they have the programs that they have through the VA when they have come out, whether it's making sure that they have health care and that we're doing things that we need to do to make sure that they're taken care of for life when they have been harmed, and things like that. The Republicans never want to take any responsibility for any of that stuff.
No, of course they don't, and it's almost by design, because when you see the things they do, it's not the big things in some ways, it's the small things. It's cutting things like veteran crisis hotlines. That shows kind of exactly where their heart is at, because that doesn't cost very much money. It really doesn't. And it shows at the end of the day that they don't give two fucking shits about veterans or, by extension, active military members. When you look at things like the trans ban on, active folks in the military being trans, in court, It was not sustainable. The people in charge could not with a straight face say there's any documentation or evidence that having trans soldiers was a detriment to readiness, to anything. There was nothing there. It's just the cruelty. It's literally it is just demonstrating to anyone and everyone that they do not care about you. If you're a veteran,
you also take a look at, it took until Joe Biden got in office not to learn about, we all knew about, it had been reported for many years, but to see action really taken to provide, benefits to people who are still serving and or were out of the military, but were veterans who had served and were harmed by those burn pits in the Middle East, and the stuff that was the toxic, chemicals and such that were being breathed and that were screwing up people who had served in our military over there. And it infuriates you. I have an uncle who served in Vietnam, and it took a fight until maybe 15 years ago for him to be able to have them deal with the cancer that it developed.
Agent Orange.
Well, in his ocular nerves. So it's a crying shame.
Yeah, it took a long time for them to even acknowledge Agent Orange as anything in the VA. And as someone who's a retiree, I would tell you that pay raises and those types of things, I didn't get them. Very 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 small pay raises under Republican leadership, and under Democratic leadership, it always seemed to be more. So they're always providing more because they appreciate the veterans that have served our country. So there's a clear difference to me. You can see it. It's one thing to spew it out of your mouth. It's another thing to take action to do it. And the Republicans seem to just spew it. They don't actually provide anything.
Well, James, thank you very much for joining us, giving us an update on what happened at World Pride in Washington, D.C., and talking with us about what's still on the front burner for people who are in our community and beyond, among the veteran forces in America who are trying to not get screwed 6 ways to Sunday in being able to survive after, making the huge commitment that they made in their lives to the United States of America. So we appreciate that. We do have a new feature that we're going to be offering in this season, and it's a way for you to get involved and to also win yourself some swag and prize package from the Richie and John show. And that is going to be with our social media public service announcement of the week. I have lots of friends who are constantly sending me links to various things, and so we'd like to invite all of you to be able to write to Richie and I. You can do that by sending us feedback, info@richieandjohn.com, and if you send us the piece that we end up using, we're going to send you a gift pack. So I want to give you a heads up right now on how to do that. Again, you can email us, and all of our information is on our website at richieandjohn.com. But I also want to show you this week's winner. And a friend of ours who watches the show, Bo Williams, is the person who submitted this particular public service announcement of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, and mega aliens who have snuck into this listening audience, the Richie and John Show presents the social media public service announcement of the week.
So let's get one thing straight and two things gay. Hi, I'm Addison. I've been an ICU nurse for 6 years. And the other day, my best friend Lindsay asked me what's something that as a nurse I would never do. And I immediately responded back, wear a and she was like, why? And it just reminded me of this story. So I'm going to share it with you guys. So if you didn't know this, whenever male patients start to get swelling, or edema as we like to call it, one of the first things that starts to swell is the balls, the sugar plums, the wrinkleberries. So we had a patient come in that I was 90% sure was the G in the lasagna garlic bread time queen community. And even though that's not important, the only reason I say that is because who I would assume was his partner was also there and was being hysterical the whole time. So when he came in, the paramedics were actively resuscitating him. And then eventually when we got his pulse back, we put him on life support, breathing tube, the whole 9 yards. It wasn't upon further investigation until we realized that he was wearing a metal ring. And the boysenberries were about that big. I have never seen so many medical professionals crowded around somebody's junk before. Lube was everywhere. Sweat was everywhere. But everybody still had their clothes on. Eventually, we had to call in the big guns. Now, if you've never seen a gay man get hysterical before, just wait until somebody tries to take the jaws of life to his partner's scrot. Now, while the partner was giving us Oscar-winning tears, and just as the paramedics were pulling out the jaws of life, one of the nurses somehow popped a nut free. It was like a scene out of a movie. Y'all ever seen Flubber? The ring shot up in the air, hit one of the surgical lights, and started bouncing around the room like it was trying to possess somebody. Now, I support gay rights and I support gay wrongs, but I will never wear a ring.
Okay. I don't know. Richie, are there any particular things that you would never do, never wear? For our friend who was featured today, he wasn't going to mess around with cock rings anymore. How about you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do. So I'll give a story, which is that there is something that I will not mess with again. It's sort of in that same vein, which is I had and I forget where I actually I tried to look it up where I got it and I can't remember. It was a butt plug that was sort of two pieces. It was metal and it had the sort of inner part, and then it had like sort of a silicone tubing, like a surgical tubing, and then the flange on the base. And so the main part would go in, then there'd just be a little tube, and then there's the flange to keep it from migrating, as you would say. I had it for a while, and then one night I was like, okay, I'm going to bring out that old thing. And it went in there. And when I went to get it out, the surgical tubing had gotten brittle and it snapped off. So the flange and the surgical tubing was in my hand. The rest of it was up there.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be a very awkward conversation with the ER. Thankfully, through machinations I will not share, we ended up not having to go to the ER. But I will certainly caution against using that type of product ever again. So yeah, just be careful. Just be careful. And we have friends who work in the ER as nurses and even as doctors, and they have a lot of stories about stuff that people put up in the places.
Yeah. It's funny because I was actually doing a paint job on a friend's house many years ago in Puyallup, Washington, which is right near Tacoma, where James used to live. Mm-hmm. And my friend Cliff's wife, she was a nurse in the ER, and she was sitting there at the table. I was not out to them at the time. And she was sitting there at the table talking about some of the implements that they have had to deal with at the ER at Tacoma General Hospital. And it was a very uncomfortable moment for me because my dad knew, and he was sitting there as we were eating our chicken and corn after the paint day. But yeah, it was kind of crazy, especially when she mentioned, she says, they can actually get a bowling ball up there. And my dad was like, not in mine. I just wanted to crawl under the table. Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those days. Anyway, well, listen, we're going to be back again for Newsday Tuesday, and hope that you'll join us then. James, again, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of the Richie and John Show. And again, if you want to let us know anything that you'd like us to be covering, suggest somebody for a guest and a topic, you're welcome to do that, or ask questions about something you might have heard on the show. We'll get back to you right away. Our email and all that contact information is available at richieandjohn.com. Hey, Richie, have a great weekend. And I understand you're on your way north of the border.
I am. I'm going to head up to Montreal, which I've not been to before. I'm pretty excited. And I'm going to just briefly, for those who are watching this on our YouTube video feed, which if you don't, it's a kind of fun, I have to say, to see our made for radio faces on video. I'm going to show, I got a new shirt today from a friend that sent it, and I'm very, very proud of it. For those on the audio version, Hussey. It says Hudson Valley Hussey, and it has a picture of a sort of mountain range and a sunset and a little bear and some like.
The only thing it's missing is the apple.
Right? Yeah. But I was very tickled when I got the shirt today, and I, of course, immediately put it on, and I wore it to my favorite little sandwich shop for lunch.
Well, who gets the shout out for that?
That is my friend Fisher.
Okay.
And as soon as I got in the sandwich shop, where they know me by name, the woman behind the counter clocked it, and she was like, "I love that T-shirt."
That's great.
So. I'm pretty psyched. I'm going to be wearing it all the time. But yes,
That's
I will
awesome.
probably wear it to Montreal. I've never been there. Can't wait to go. But we will be back with Newsday Tuesday and plenty more. We will have we will talk probably about this pathetic North Korea style military parade that is happening at the moment.
And of course, we'll also get a chance to talk about the nearly 2,000 communities across the United States that are today, in fact, holding their No King's Day events. And
Yes.
It excites me because as much as we hate what is happening, it's nice to know that he is continually losing in the courts and in the court of public opinion.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. And until then, talk to you later, John. Thanks, James.
Thank you all.
Richie and John is a production of the United America Network, a division of the Mutual Broadcasting System. Opinions expressed are those of the hosts and their guests. If you have a problem with it, bugger off.
Freedom and equality, let it be clear. Being who you are, fun, frisky, and out loud queer. From Mutual Broadcasting, we're breaking free. Living our truth, just you listen and see. Living our truth, just you listen and see.